I'm reminded when a tragedy rocks a community, we walk around in this sort of stunned stupor of grief, anger, bewilderment, and as we struggle to make sense of our loss, we might not see the bigger picture, but we focus on how this particular awful event will impact us and his future. What are we going to do now? This wasn't how I imagined things would turn out. And so it was with these two followers heading away from Jerusalem in anguish over the death of Jesus. Their vision is clouded, and they don't recognize Jesus as the fellow traveler who joins them. Maybe you've experienced seeing someone you thought you knew, and then they turned out to be somebody else. I had a friend in Canada. She was not particularly tall, and in order to stand out in a crowd, if she were meeting me, she developed this signature hand wave. So when I saw that hand rising above all those heads, I knew Sandra's in there somewhere. And even so, I know she still lives in Canada. I saw that hand waving at me in Pleasantville the other day. It couldn't be, could it? And maybe, what if Jesus came in the front door one day on Sunday? Would we notice? I mean, maybe if it was January and he had on sandals, but would we really know him? I mean, it couldn't be him, right? Right? I mean, should we take him to coffee hour? Most of these post-resurrection stories we'll hear for the next few weeks, Jesus appears very unexpectedly, and yet he behaves the way he always did. Ready to listen, ready to ask key questions, seeking companionship, teaching, and of course, sharing a meal. Many of the appearances by Jesus are to ordinary folks, doing ordinary things like walking along the road, talking. They're getting on with their lives as best they can, knowing that they're missing that deep connection with God, which is the true path they want to follow. On the road with the two men, we're told Jesus listened intently to their fears and losses. We were hoping that he was the one who was going to rescue Israel. He didn't announce his presence, but he waited for them to invite him into their lives. As he taught and spoke with them, the light started to dawn and the darkness began to dim. Then he fully revealed himself in the breaking of bread. Once their eyes were opened and they recognized Jesus for who he really was, they turned around and headed back the 7 miles to Jerusalem to share the good news with the others. Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road? I came to the Episcopal Church as an adult, with no history of religious tradition to leave, to convert from, to compare, or even to disparage my new journey. I just loved the hymns, the liturgy, the prayers, the holy community of my new home. It was a heady first love. My heart was burning. I accepted the teachings and I wanted more and more of Jesus in my life. I wasn't fighting old habits. I was eating all the ice cream and cake and pie and pancakes, whatever God threw at me. But I hit a bad patch. The rapid birth of 3 children placed demands on me. I had no idea what I was going to do. They all wanted so much of me. Where was I going to get what I needed? Sleep, for instance, time to read, moments of quiet in the... How about a conversation with Dwight? None of that was happening. For the better part of a year or so, I functioned, but without much joy or spontaneity. I knew nothing about interventions, therapy, medication. I just got along blindly, hoping for some relief from I don't know what. It was this cloud hovering over me. Somehow, in the midst of all this, I managed to find myself on a Lenten retreat apart from the family. Now, I don't know how that gift happened. That winter afternoon, it was darkening, and there were thin shafts of sunlight hitting the colorful stained glass windows of the largely empty chapel. We'd been given some time to pray and meditate before dinner on this 3-day weekend. Talks had been offered by many people about journeys to God. There was no one path, no one discipline or spiritual road. All were of value. It all seemed to offer both flux and stability. But the key seemed to be honesty. Honesty with oneself and the desire to have God fully present. So I sat there in the quiet, and a shaft of winter sunlight beamed through the purple grapes of the window near the altar. There was a hush, then a breath of sound almost in sync with my breathing. A few seconds of connection, and then the light faded. No angels soaring through the air, but a sense of presence, of union with something, someone, fleeting, unnameable, yet comforting. We were called to dinner. The retreat ended and I went home. I had not been miraculously healed, but I had had some wounds bound. Somehow, I felt lighter. I felt as if someone was listening. Someone cared enough to be sure. I saw another shaft of winter sunlight lighten the darkness. My cloud started to lift. I think much of what we do here at church is about the mystery we celebrate. The mystery of how God could love us so much. He gave his only son in death for us. How can that be? Even more puzzling to me than Nicodemus' muddle about trying to get physically born again. It is easier to be born in the spirit and then go through childbirth, I assure you. But that pales in comparison to the deeper question of God's love for us. It's manifested in loss, in disruption, not in a mountaintop experience. I think one of the many attributes of Jesus, which maybe gets overlooked, is his imagination. He was always teaching in metaphors and images, word pictures of what was and what might be. When he would ask those in need of healing what it is they wanted, of course he knew the answer. The need was obvious. But yet he would ask the seeker, what is it you imagine health to be? What would your well-being look like? So it's in this manner of teaching, in the two on the road, they were reminded of Jesus. They saw his signature hand wave, saw his usual compassionate heart at work, and knew then who was before them. I have a treat for you. This is a poem by my favorite writer, Brian Doyle. Or here's a story. A woman in New Jersey loses her husband on September 11th. That's exactly the phrase she uses, he got lost. That day and never found his way home. And to be real honest, I have no idea where he went, she says. And so on she goes in life. I plodded on, she says, or say, blundered, wandered, stumbled. And 7 years zoom by, the kids are almost away to college. When I get a call from a priest friend of mine who says, "You gotta take this pilgrimage with me to France." I'm thinking, what the hell? I should pay cash to fly to a country where they worship snails? But he persuades me. And I have not been on an honest vacation since, well, you know. So no kidding. I go with him and his tour gang. And there's one night we're way out in the country at a chapel. They're all inside, soaking in the incense and sacred music. And I sneak outside to get a smoke for like the fourth time since. And my husband appears to me clear as life on the church walls. I tell you, he was as real gets, and he looked damn fine. I says to him, "Where are you, love?" And he says, "Well, isn't this France?" This sets us laughing, hysterical, like two little kids, and we talk a while about some subjects which you do not need to know about. And then after a while, he sort of fades back into the chapel walls. I can't explain it, and I haven't the slightest inclination to even try. It is what it is. All I can say is I got a great peace that night. Also, the kids and I are going back to France as soon as we can. That can be us. Our hearts burning within us with the presence and certainty of God's love for us in the midst of whatever may be going on.